Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Mesa Engineering Subway WD-800 and 112 cab. A great pro setup for the working bassist. So the WD-800 is an entry into Mesa's Subway line of heads. There are 4 different ones now: the D800, the D800 Plus, the WD-800, and the TT-800. The WD-800 draws a lot of design cues from Mesa Boogie's history. They made a bass head called the Walkabout for a number of years, and the EQ section on this amp takes its cues from the Walkabout head. It also has a tube preamp, so you can get a little bit more of character in the input. A lot of people have different thoughts on what a tube in the preamp does. Some don't care. Some notice a difference. So there you go. This is for the people who like a hybrid amp with a tube in the pre and a solid state output stage. This is what's made for you. Retail wise, these go for right around $1,000. The speaker cab is 112. Again, it has a tweeter and with a control in the back. Speaker cab weighs about 32 pounds. There's what Mesa calls a triport design. And really gives a nice solid sound. Doesn't break your back. Pretty nice. Amp itself weighs about a little under 7 pounds. So for under 40 pounds, or right around 40 pounds, you got a nice pro working rig going here. Let's talk about the front panel controls. So you notice you have these nice little bumpers here to help protect the amp in transit. It does come with a very nice carry bag with a nice big pocket that holds your cables. Nice to include that. Thank you, Mesa. Starting over here, you have your input jack, obviously, and 2 switches. First switch here is your mute switch, and this here is your active-passive switch. Then you have your input gain switch. Then you have your high-pass filter, which allows you to select frequencies between 25 Hz and 125 Hz. What does that do? Well, this allows you to dial out a lot of the boominess that may come in. There's a lot happening in the lower frequencies that sucks up power and can cause speaker damage and really doesn't add a whole lot to the music. So what this allows you to do is once you get your tone dialed in, you can use the high pass filter to take out some of that extra lumble and really tighten up your sound. Then you have your bass control, which is centered around 80 Hz, active control. You have a parametric, or semi-parametric, to be more precise, mid controls, which you can switch in and out with a foot switch. And it's very, very flexible, the range of controls. There you notice the frequencies are quite widespread. It goes from 80 to 1K in the first band, and then 150 to 2.5K in the second band, and then the last band is 300 to 5,000 Hertz. So you can get a really nice tone sculpture going there, or controlling a room. A whole lot happening on this head. Here, this is what they call a passive mid, and this works very much like the mid control on a passive bass. Fully clockwise, all mids through, it's cut only. So you roll it back, and it takes out the mid, so it's a nice way. Mesa says between 10 and 12, gives you kind of a flat sound overall. Something nice to play around with. Then, of course, you have your treble control, which is centered at 2500 Hertz, your master volume, and then your power amp damping control. And this is kind of funky. What does that mean? Well, tube amps and solid state amps interact differently with speakers. It's kind of complex, but the tube amp has typically what's called a low damping rating, and solid states tend to be more high. So if you set this to low, you get what Mesa says you'll get more of a bloomy, more organic sound, more loose, gives you more of a feel of what a tube amp may sound like. You put it on high, and it's more like the fast attack of a solid state. And in between, medium obviously splits the difference between the two. Now you may say, what the heck, I don't need all these fancy controls. Just give me a straightforward amp and I'm all set. Well, yeah. Now, personally, I'm the type of guy that would Rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And if you just want to have a nice straight ahead amp with not a whole lot of futzing around to do, you can get that from this head. Get the foot switch, because I do notice, and we'll show a little bit later, there's a little bit of a difference between everything being centered on the parametric EQ and it being switched out. But I mean, you can just get away with using the input, gain, bass, treble, and master, and not touch any other knob and get a very usable sound out of this head. You may get into a situation where the room is really boomy, or something is going wrong, or you need a little extra subtraction or addition in a frequency. That's all here in this head. So, and be honest with you, it's come in handy for me. One of the main reasons I got this head was for the high pass filter. You can get rid of that low end frequency, get rid of that boominess, and still have bass in your sound. So a head that just has, bass, mid, and treble controls, you got to crank the bass down all the way to get rid of that boominess. Don't have to worry about it on this. So something to think about. A lot of modern amps have high pass filters built in, but at a fixed frequency. So they're doing that roll off for you, which is nice because it helps protect your equipment. But I prefer to have the control over it. So it's a growing thing, especially as you go to more extended range basses, and the trend is toward smaller, lighter speaker cabinets. It's nice to be able to have that control. Let's take a look at the back panel quickly. Straightforward. You got your mains and your power switch. You got your fan. You have your speak-on jacks. These are speak-on only. They are not dual design, so you cannot use a 1/4 inch on these. You need to use a speak-on only. The speaker cabs do have duals, so you can use a 1/4 inch cable on the cab, but you must use speak-on this, and that is for your safety as much as the amp safety, because the way the design is, if you would use a 1/4 inch one and not have it inserted all the way, or it would get pulled out, it would short and probably destroy the amp. So you don't want that, right? Then here we have your impedance selector switch. You can choose between either 4 and 8 ohms or 2 ohms. One thing that's great about this amp, and it's not true of any other amps, so don't assume because you have an impedance selector this works on those amps. But with the Mesa Subway amps, you can use 8 and 4 ohm cabinets using the 2 ohm selector. And what happens when you present it with a load of 4 or 8 ohms when you're on the 2 ohm selector is it steps down the wattage. So I have this really nice cab over here, my AER1 cab. It's a 4 ohm cab rated at 400 watts. This puts out 800 watts at 4 ohms. I probably would blow that cab up if I'm not careful. But by switching it over to 2 ohms, then I'm only putting out 600 watts, which is a little bit less power. Still got to be careful, but less likely to blow. So nice and handy, really great idea from Mesa on that. Then you have, of course, your headphones jack. You have a foot switch jack. We'll get to that in a second. Pretty much any 2-button foot switch with a tip ring sleeve can go in here. Then you have your effects loop, send and return. You have your auxiliary input and a tuner output. Auxiliary input, it's 1/4 inch, so you have to use an adapter, but if you plug your phone or the MP3 player and play along. Then you have a full functioned DI with pre-post, mic or line level switch, and the ground lift. But one more thing. What's this? It's a USB power port. So if you have devices, you want to charge your phone, or in my case, I use the X5 wireless unit that charges off of USB. Incredibly pro-featured, full-featured, more features than you can even think of in an amp. And your nice handy carrying strap on the side. So there you go. There's your front and rear panels. Now the foot switch. Here's my old Hosa, nice and dirty because I've been stepping on it with my mute and EQ. So there's the mute and the EQ, and like I said, any 2-button foot switch will work. That has a tip ring sleeve cord Of course, Mesa will sell you one. It's $55. It's a little smaller, and it says Mesa Engineering on it, and has mute and EQ actually, silk screened on it, so it looks a little more professional. But if you don't want to shell out the $55 for the Mesa, any 2-button foot switch that uses a tip ring sleeve will work. So there you go. All right, let's get down to some tone samples. First off, the bass we're using is an Ibanez EHB 1505 MS. It has Nordstrom big split pickups in it. It does have a preamp, but I'm going to be going totally passive, both pickups, up full, tone up all the way. So natural tone of the bass, all the tone's going to come from the amplifier. For sound, we're going to go with a couple things. We're going to go off the room mic, we're going to go off a close mic, and we're going to go direct. So we'll give you different samples so you can have a different idea of how everything works. So to start off, we're going to have the high pass filter all the way down, and all the EQs are going to be centered. We're muted. You can see the red light. We're going to take off mute. And this first will be just each open string, all the EQs centered. This is direct signal. This is the closed mic signal. And now, this is the room mic signal. Now, and as I mentioned, the foot switch controls either the mute or the EQ, the parametric EQ. So we have everything centered on the parametric EQ. Let's see what it sounds like if I pull out this with everything centered. You would think there wouldn't be any change. If you notice, the second time there, I switched out the EQ while playing. So a little bit of a difference. I mean, if you're crazy and anal about things, you may want to have that foot switch so you can pull the EQ out. Anyways, let's check out the high pass filter. So here we are. Here's an open B with the high pass filter off. I'm going to slowly roll the high pass filter on, starting from the 25 hertz and up. There it is, up all the way. And down all the way. So you can see it's subtle, but it pulls out that extra low frequency. So, like I said, very helpful in fine-tuning and pulling out some of those low boominess that you don't need in your sound. So let's run real quick through here, through the mid. I'm going to cut here at 500 hertz. I'm going to boost at 150 a little. And then at 5,000 I'm going to cut as well. So let's see what that sounds like. That's with the EQ out. Here's with the EQ in. Not bad. You can see where that can come in handy. Now the passive mids here, we're going to do an open E string, and I'm going to sweep the passive mids. So Mesa says this is more or less flat. So again, very subtle. What it kind of does is it can, either bring in a little bit back if you've done some EQing, you want to bring a little extra bite back into your tone. It's helpful. There was a AMP, Amplified Music Products, made a head called the BH420 that had a control like this. It was a kind of almost like a makeup gain is how you can use it. But very, very versatile. And finally here we have the power amp damping. Again, very subtle, but one of those things where if you hear it, you can hear it. So it's here, it's on the high damping, so it's meant to give more of a solid state sound. Let's go to low damping, which is supposed to be more tube-like. I play, you decide. Alright, so that's the head. Let's take a look at this cab a little bit here. Very nice. There's heavy-duty Tolex. If you want, you can special order a colored Tolex from Mesa. Cool. Heavy-duty steel grill. Spring-loaded handles on the sides. And what Mesa does do that is nice, it's a pretty straightforward cab, fits on top of other cabs. Maybe you want to have it stand up. Well, they don't supply them, but you can get them easy enough. I think the whole thing cost me $8. I ordered another set of screws and another set of feet. You could put extra set of feet in the side, and if you don't want to look dorky and have your emblems be sideways, there are pre-drilled holes here in the grill, which are almost impossible to show, so take my word for it right now, where you can switch your badging over. There's for that, and then down here for this one. Pretty damn cool. And here's your back side of the cab. Your tweeter control, normal, plus or minus, and your two jacks. As I said, these are combo jacks. You can use either 1/4 inch or the speak-on. And here you go. This is what it looks like when you switch everything around. Pretty nice, huh? So this is my main, or will be, my main gigging rig once gigging comes back. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask down in the comments. If you like what you see, please subscribe. I have a list of other videos that I have of reviews. I'll have a playlist pop up somewhere around there. So please check those out. And have a great day.